All right, welcome back to Four Nerds Save the Universe podcast. It's been like 2 months because other people have lives
Too
that get in the way of things, apparently.
Well, like,
sorry.
Bird moved across the country, literally across the country.
Yeah,
Shell and I went to PAX, which threw wrenches in things. Bird suddenly had an epiphany and decided that he was only available for an hour and a half every day, so that always throws forks at everything.
2 hours. It's just we take a half hour to start anything.
I know. He's no longer a student. He has a job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You graduated. Now he's got 2 degrees.
Yep.
3.
That's not even the universal story of having a job. It's the really specific case of him, like, I'm going to work 7 jobs simultaneously. Yeah. I'm like, what do I have, free days? Let's fill those up.
So what are the other jobs then?
Well, he's working on the indie game.
I am working on the indie game.
A lot more than I am. We'll talk about that when we have more of a completed product.
Wait till we get more progress on it.
It's like,
I don't like talking.
Saw the way that we don't have any days off and was like, I want that.
Joke's on you. I've always been this way.
As opposed to any normal life people that have weekends. All of us chose this life, apparently.
No, I mean, here's the thing. I work as a programmer full time, and I get really stressed out at work. So I go home, and to unwind, I program.
But for fun.
Yes, exactly. I do mathematics to help myself calm down after a day of doing mathematics.
It's like how I gave up on computer science as a major, but then I go play Quadrilateral Cowboy. And I'm like, why am I typing like command prompt code for fun in a video game? What am I doing with my time now?
Programming video games, like, some of them are great. I really like Human Resource Machine.
Yeah, that was a great game.
It presented itself very well and in a really fun way.
What's the worst programming game you've seen?
Worst programming game I've seen? There was one.
Yeah, what was the one you tried playing with Rockwar? That one looked like a small
Shenzhen IO. That one wasn't the worst. That one was actually really good. Yeah. It's just stupid hard.
I've heard crazy recommendations about that, but I don't think it's made for people that don't program.
One question.
Yep.
Has a computer been able to program another computer?
That's a really cool question. Man, I'm glad you asked that. That's stuff I think about all the time. He sounds
like my brother whenever we ask him chemistry questions.
Well, so it's because there's been this thing. I forget the name of it. It's like Paint something or other. And a lot of people have been putting their manga line art into this program, and it spits out a colored piece. What it does is it colors your line art. That's
pretty cool. And we're going to see stuff like that just get more and more powerful in the next, 10, 15 years. It's going to be terrifying.
Well, I'd be more terrified when computers can actually draw art that isn't just a trace or composite from a photograph or something.
Right, and that's where they're stuck right now. Computers are really good at imitating other people's patterns, even when they're very intelligent, but they're still not very creative. Yet.
Right. So I think this coloring program, it recognizes where the human skin would be, and it has some kind of random scatter mapping to make a watercolory effect. And you can actually prompt it by doing a little dash of color in each section. Oh, I want my character to have red hair and a blue dress, and it will take that and it will some of the results are really nice, and it had a lot of artists afraid because they're like, oh no, is this going to be the future of art?
But then it turns out that it can't break out of that box, right? It's really good at doing one thing very specifically very fast, but
it's like the robot musicians.
Yeah, you feed them a bunch of Beethoven and they spit out a really good Beethoven piece, and that's it. That's all they can do.
Yeah, it's
so
so that's a really threatened by art creating robots, but I'm like, I don't want to listen to this though. I don't want to listen to this music.
So anyway, back to what you were saying about a computer programming itself. That's a really cool question.
Or another computer.
That got a lot of that question actually got an answer before the first computer was made. So that's called the halting problem, which was solved, I believe, in the 1930s. By what's his name?
That's not a number you expect to hear.
Yeah, Alan Turing was the guy who solved the halting problem. He was also
Turing test.
Yeah, the Turing test. He also cracked the Enigma code, and Alan Turing is one of the greatest computer scientists to have ever lived. So what he proved is that a computer can't examine another program to find if there are infinite loops. Because what will happen is that computer will, the only way it can detect it is if it enters the infinite loop itself. And so you just have two computers that are spinning in an infinite loop now, effectively.
Like when two chatbots find each other.
Yeah, so they would just, I don't know, they would just talk at each other infinitely. Like they would never... Yeah.
I noticed that, I think it was James Gurney, who, Dinotopia author and whatever. Did I talk about this last time or just in...
You've talked about this during something that we were doing.
I think it was World of Warcraft with Keith.
Yeah.
Earlier
Yeah, there
about
we go.
How there are people that are streaming their robots speaking with one another. And they get thousands and thousands of views. And I remember this one little conversation between two of them because I decided to hey, I'm going to see what this is. And... The one of them was asking about the other one's faith. And it's like,
weird.
Do you believe in God? And the other one's like, I don't know if I believe in God. And the other one is like, well, how do you know that you do not believe in God? And it's because... And so they just went back and forth a little while. And then the other one eventually says, all I know is that I believe in myself. And it was just like, whoa.
Damn. I wish I was as confident as that robot.
Just give them a few more weeks and they'll talk about the war on Christmas.
Oh, God. Why? We were having fun, Keith.
Then they were arguing about what genders they were and if one wanted to marry the other.
I'm just saying you can't measure their intelligence until they learn to hate.
It was adorable for a little while.
Man.
And then it got kind of dumb.
I know we're both bitter, angry individuals, Keith, but usually we keep these sorts of thoughts in our conversations to each
No,
other.
I'm just saying that's when it becomes weirdly realistic, is when they start actually getting, bitterly arguing with each other, as opposed to having a civil conversation about self-actualization.
Oh, I know. One was claiming that the other one wasn't real. And the other one's like, how do you... I know I am a girl. How do you know you are a girl? But because my name is Rob. That is not a girl name. No, really. These are the things they were saying.
That's like that almost reads like a webcomic dialogue at that point. The punchline is, that's not a girl's name. And then some dude is just like...
It was really smooth and interesting at times, and other times they'd loop back on themselves and you'd be like, all right, get to the good stuff.
Somebody did not program an AI to understand the name Roberta.
Yeah.
So looping
Clearly
back,
the Turing test has been failed.
Looping back, though, we've proven mathematically that a computer cannot program itself.
Well, not itself.
However,
I'm talking about another computer.
Yeah, or itself. It's the same thing, mathematically speaking. But the thing is, and this is now going into what I personally believe. I think that we will probably eventually wind up with a computer that is as intelligent as a human being is, and then they will be able to program other computers, but they'll do it in a way that human beings tend to approach it.
Factual intelligence, or the ability to
reason in an abstract and higher order type of way that computers currently don't do.
Process for innovation.
If you've ever watched Jeopardy with Watson and stuff. It's like, he just has
that's just a knowledge
such a
base.
wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, but this isn't... I'm talking about, the ability for a machine to think on an abstract level, which they're moving towards, but they're very far away from the ability that humans have to be able to extrapolate from patterns and, think about things related back to their previous experiences. That specifically is something computers can't do hardly at all.
It's one of those things where you don't realize how much the brain can accomplish until you try to recreate it.
Exactly.
Well,
It also doesn't help that scientists are still having trouble understanding, how the shit does the brain actually do what the brain does.
Yeah.
I could also
The brain's the most powerful thing ever, and we have no idea how it got there and how it works. It's just there. It's just a self-evident existence.
Also, without a tangible form like humans do, I mean, computers probably wouldn't have the same opportunities to interact with the environment and with other beings because they're in such an isolated environment. How would they know, hey, so and so is going to try to trip me in the hallway. No, they don't interact with people like that.
Right? Yeah, computers have they don't really have the ability to sense things nearly as well as people do. Obviously.
Also, what kind of decisions would they be able to make from a computer standpoint, unless they were given some kind of virtual arena with which they could interact with other people or things?
Yeah, that's what we would have to build, is basically some sort of internal to the computer simulation, which I guess is what, the human mind already does. Like, you enter a room and your mind instantaneously builds a model of where things are inside of itself, and you can comprehend the space that you're in. And that's what your Roomba does, I guess. But look at how good of a job it does.
To progress too far. I'm
really sorry.
I don't think anyone really wants it, but it's going to happen. So.
I don't ever want to experience the feeling of trying to question whether or not it's a person at some point. Like when it reaches significant complexity where I'm like, I can't tell if this thing should have rights.
My understanding, or how I feel about it, is that the idea of everything being a computer becoming self-aware is totally not going to happen, because you only really need one really intelligent computer. To be you just need 3 of them, and you're good. You don't need any more. Yeah. But you don't need your toaster to be able to be I love you, Keith. Stick your bread in me, Keith.
I just think of how Next Generation is one of my favorite shows ever, and despite watching the entire thing in all the movies, that's at least at some point, probably multiple times, I can't tell you, even in this fictional world, whether Data's a person. No matter how much time you spend with it, you can never tell if that concept is ever a real sentient creature or an incredibly complex facsimile that's just doing responses that it's supposed to do, all the way down to even emotions.
Yeah, this is really funny because I'm sure Ladybird is probably thinking this too. We had a big conversation about this just the other day, and it actually relates to a lot of stuff I'm working into the video game I'm working on, but we'll talk about that at another time. But it's just kind of funny to me that of all the topics we're talking about, it happens to be this one in our gaming podcast.
Well, it relates to stuff I play in games too, because I play a lot of AI-related games. That's true.
You play a lot of the philosophical things.
Yeah, I played Talos Principle and Turing Test. Literally a game called Turing Test. And let's just say there's a reason Soma's a horror game, because these concepts are actually really messed up at the end of the day.
Abstracted away, I'll leave out the stuff that relates to things that I'm thinking of putting into my own game, and just talk about things that I've seen, general trends in the indie game scenes and in the gaming industry as a whole towards tackling this subject matter of what is real and what is a virtual experience. I've been seeing that specifically emerge a lot in video games over the past year or so. But you can trace it back pretty far. Yeah, what were you going to say?
So when we were at PAX, I wanted to go to a panel, and the panel ended up not being really what I expected to be. But it was addressing online communities. And it was interesting because it wasn't until they brought audience members up to ask them questions where they actually got into what I believe they should have included in their presentation regarding, what are the communities that people make online? What roles do people take on? How is it different from their real life circumstances? Do they feel empowered by it? Would people who normally wouldn't have had the opportunity to interact with people at school and whatnot feel more comfortable in this other environment that is either text-based or they have different skills that they use? And it was interesting, but I remember a question they had asked was, how many of you guys out there who've played with friends online, people that you've never met before, how confidently can you say that these are your friends? And pretty much everyone in the audience had raised their hands.
Said yeah.
Yeah, because... And it's interesting. I think there was one guy that was a little bit of a troll, and he had raised his hand when asked, how many of you can say that, the people that you interact with in your line, like, aren't your friends at all in any capacity, and they never will be, like that kind of thing. But it's interesting, and
it is really interesting.
What was that? Why was I tying it into? I'm trying to think about. I think it's about what was reality and how. There were for some people, the relationships they have online are more real to them than the interpersonal relationships they might have on a more tangible level in real life.
It's the contradiction where the addition of barriers removes barriers. Because people are just honest about themselves in a lot of ways when they see no real repercussion or any chance of there being a penalty for being honest, so they end up opening up to themselves specifically because of the idea of never actually being around these people. But
the first time I ever made like a online multiplayer netcode type of experience, and I got to see the nuts and bolts of how that's put together, it actually really kind of opened my eyes a little bit to like what the nature of an online experience really boils down to. Because after I worked on that a little bit, I went and played a game of Team Fortress 2, and I saw a little bit like behind like the magic of how it all works, and it was just like I'm playing with other people, but that avatar that's running around, like they're playing as a medic. That avatar exists only in my computer, and I'm getting signals that are just telling that thing to, like, move.
Yeah.
But it's not like the other person is even moving it. Like,
there's
it's
a puppet
so
show
abstracted.
happening in front of you, and the internet's telling your game how to try to do the puppet show as best it can to represent the same puppet show everyone else is seeing, which is
exactly.
super not
That's exactly what it is. And it's weird because...
But when we have our characters in a game together and one of us jumps, I mean, we're controlling them through the computer. So what was it you were trying to get? That something else was moving them? Or
no, I mean, it's like I associate that avatar with you, but you don't even... It's so seamless, like how many layers are actually happening to make that abstraction appear, because it's like there's this thing of data that exists only in my computer, and I receive like a signal through the internet that was supposedly sent by you, and like I hear like your voice over the internet right now, but I don't hear you speaking in the room.
Yeah.
I just hear this electronic signal that has been translated into, sound waves. Like there's so many different layers to build up that abstraction.
Like when you play an online game,
it feels real.
You totally think
it feels
that
like you're right there.
You think you're all looking through a window to one shared world, as opposed to 17 separate puppet shows on everyone's individual computer that are all slightly different and different levels of latency and lag, and even
time
differences in
dilation,
how similar
physics.
Sometimes there's entire differences in how the thing's simulated because something is not matching and stuff like that, and everything starts falling apart.
Yeah, things like records I find still are perplexing to me. I understand on a basic level how they're supposed to work, but if I were given a plain vinyl and machine components and was told to, figure out how to make a song, put it onto the record, and then have a needle bring the input out, I
mean, it's
weird,
effectively
right?
like a hyper-advanced music box.
It is.
Works off of the same concept, just...
Right, but a music box is very mechanical in nature. You still have each of the individual notes connected to a piece of metal that is, with the wheels spinning, it makes the nubs flick each individual note, so it's still very mechanical.
I think they both are. It's just one's super, like, kindergarten-y by comparison.
Yeah.
Like,
and one's a diaphragm.
One's a
that's
big,
just
giant, obvious visual model for the other one, in a way.
What's even in a groove on a record? Like, I've tried looking at it, and I don't...
that's a really good question. I've thought that, too. I don't know. I thought to myself it would look like, a waveform or something, and the needle, like, goes up and down, like, the sine waves. But I don't think that's actually true, because that would be kind of ridiculously hard to... manufacture.
Yeah,
but
I guess it would be. It has to be, right? Because the original way records were made was Edison had like this microphone, and he just basically attached a needle to this diaphragm, and the airwaves would hit the. It's basically like a drum head, right? And the drum head would like push in and out with the airwaves hitting it, and then it would cause the needle to move in and out or back and forth, which would like etch into the record. So I guess it does have to contain like the waveform itself.
Yeah, it's weird because if you think about it, whatever records it is just doing the action of playing it in reverse, and that it's
that's actually one of the coolest things about acoustics, huh?
Yeah, like it's basically playing the audio into the record in a way that leaves a pattern, so that when you then it could then be used as a pattern for playing it off the record, as opposed to the original sound, which is weird to think about.
Edison was a smart dude.
It's a printing press for waveforms.
Anyway, to re-rail back onto video games a little bit, and back onto what we were talking about earlier.
Quick,
a long
music game,
time ago. Huh? Oh.
Well, we were talking about
Guitar Hero.
electric signals and stuff, and I was thinking back to like what's even more basic than regular electronic signals. Oh yeah, like this, just translating outputs.
But like a long time ago, I played this Flash game that I couldn't remember. I barely remember most of the details about it, but it was this platformer game where it was on Newgrounds or Congregate. It might still be there. You played as this very generic protagonist, and you had to like rescue the kingdom from the spells of this evil wizard.
Yeah.
And it was a super generic game. You beat the game, and as soon as you beat the game, you get this dialogue from the boss you just beat that just says something like, if you hadn't defeated me, we could join forces and I could break you out of this realm or something. And then you start playing the game again from that point, where you're like working with this wizard who's trying to help the main character break out of like their video game world, basically. Saying like, you're just a character in a video game and I can set you free if you like work with me. And you work with him for a little while, and he ends up trying to betray you, and you defeat him again, and then that time you get a message from he's like, you get a dialogue from the wizard being spoken through, but instead he's not speaking for himself, he's speaking for the creator of the game, and the creator of the game just says something like, well, even though you just went through this whole experience where you were trying to break out of the video game, it's not possible because all of this was programmed anyway. And the wizard just starts saying things like you know, I may have tricked you into thinking that I actually had ambitions, but I'm just like hard-coded to say these things.
It's weirding me out. I'm getting the conversation thing you had a moment ago where it's relating to your life, where like now you're talking about stuff that relates to stuff I've been doing for the last week. Because I've been playing...
You've been trying to break out a video game world, or you've become a wizard?
No, I've been playing Nier and Stanley Parable. So
fun stuff.
One game that has a multi-tiered ending where when you finish the first ending, it's like, no, but actually, and then you restart from not the beginning, but later in the game, and then you change things multiple times over the course of 4 different endings. That keep getting further and further and weirder, like in the Drakengard games. And then, of course, Stanley Parable is all about like this idea of making fun of the concept of choice in video games, because like, oh yes, you're making choices and you're totally doing things in this game, except every single eventuality is programmed in advance, and even the narration's going to talk about how this was all caught in advance and stuff like that. Like, you can break out of a window in that game and it'll be like, you thought you broke the game? No, I planned for this too, because this is all a video game and I have control over everything.
And I really like that. I want to see where that goes personally, because I think that in terms of the tying it back to our video games art debate, I think that is actually an avenue that video games can explore, where they could probably make it in a indisputable fashion, where they really raise questions about like that experience, you know.
The Matrix.
What are you gonna say, Wander?
The video games as art thing has always felt kind of weird and garbagey to me, because like, yeah, maybe some of the initial ones like Pong were like really no different from like Connect 4. Like, yeah, you can't call that art. But the moment they actually became like simulated experiences, like your Wizard thing or whatever, it's like, yeah, I might not say the game itself is art, but the experience itself
I mean,
would
Yep.
be analogous to art.
in my mind,
I don't know.
most
Whenever I
art
hear the
is
argument, it's just like
a medium that
It's
tells
so
a story
trite at this
to
point,
me.
isn't it?
I find the question uninteresting because every time people talk about this, they're either saying video games aren't art as some sort of demeaning argument because art's so great and video games can't be art, or try to do or it's people that play video games trying to self-validate by talking about how like art's great, so video games have to be art because we have to validate that they're art to feel good about video games. And it's not an argument about it. Never feels like a classification argument to begin with, but instead a quality argument because people just want to feel good about this thing when whether or not it's art, which is a concept that doesn't matter at all and has basically a non-definition.
I just think it's a different medium, just like film, just like music.
Yeah.
Books, things
I don't
like
know.
that.
I think
It's-
that like I said, if video, I'm convinced that if video games keep exploring the nature of that experience, then it'll become more or less an indisputable thing. Because that's even where you can say like, people are like, well, maybe it is art, but it's not as moving as like a Beethoven symphony. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably true
But, like-
enough. But if you really dig
even-
at that experience, I think that will probably break it open.
Even
To
being
where it
moved
can
by
be
a
like a
symphony
real
is subjective.
humanistic, philosophical thing,
Oh yeah. People's preferences for music is definitely subjective.
Right. So yeah, that's all I really had to say about talking about like virtual experiences and AI and stuff like that. Like this is a really cool topic to me, but I don't want to.
Now,
I've been hearing in my chat that this conversation is like making people physically uncomfortable. So I guess
That's my favorite
I was
kind of
wanting to bring up
conversation.
One more thing.
I
Okay, go
seek
for
out
it, go for
games
it.
specifically for that
Okay,
conversation.
So, have you guys ever seen The Guild?
That's
Felicia Day?
the show
Yeah,
with Felicia.
Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
stopped
so-
watching, or it got canceled, I don't know.
It ended.
They ended it after like 2
Yeah.
seasons or something.
I saw the
So-
game development season last, and I think that might have been the last one, and it was
Yes.
not. It went
Oh.
downhill
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, spoilers for people that haven't seen it, but one of the main protagonist's friends, they were all online compatriots in a MMO. He actually falls in love with an in-game NPC.
Oh yeah, I remember that plot line.
There was the
It's
whole
funny.
in-game NPC thing, and it was interesting because I know that we were talking about
Was
you know,
that Zabu?
friendships. Yeah, Zabu.
Yeah.
It was him. And so we were talking just now about how when you meet other people in games, the friendships that you can forge there are they're just as real as in real life. You just don't have, you have a couple layers betwixt yourself and them in a different manner. But yeah, so we were talking about that was real. So something being real in the context as a character that is fictional. I mean, there are so many people. I don't. Maybe I shouldn't get into this.
I mean, people definitely get attached to fictional characters. Like when you there's a part where like people read through the very long saga that is all of the Harry Potter books, and then when you're done with the books, it feels like the characters died
Yeah,
because they're just gone now, and you've spent so
Right.
much time with those characters
and like
that
that
them being
experience
gone.
is just done.
Yeah. Like when a show ends, like when Game of Thrones eventually ends or something, like it's so long that even if characters live, it feels like they're dead now because the show's gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
And
you
like
get-
you've dedicated like 8 years of your life to following this thing too.
Actually, as cheesy as it is,
Or more.
I'm thinking to Galaxy Quest and how the aliens legitimately thought that the television series that Tim Allen and his how that was real. They interpreted Earth's fiction as reality, and it's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many things could be misconstrued as fact or an actual being?
And how much
I
think
how much of actual history is already fictionalized?
Yeah.
So
Games.
yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, just bouncing off of what Shell just said.
segue into
Wander,
Nazi propaganda.
Wander, who's your waifu? Who was your
Whoa.
first digital video game waifu?
Who is your
Thinking.
who is your waifu for laifu?
Nah, you can't be tied down to one waifu for waifu, dude.
I'm trying to think
just
of
having
like
much
games I
waifu.
played as a kid that had a female character.
I thought you played Final Fantasy.
Not enough of them.
Are you trying to think of just any good female character in a video game?
Like, the first female character in a video game that I ever came across was
Surprisingly
Tanya
difficult.
from Red Alert. Which
Well, there you go. Was
I
Tanya
don't
your
think that
waifu?
counts. She was nothing but pixels.
Oh, Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was
Wasn't
way
she
too
probably
young
a real
to, like...
person acting?
Well, yeah, they had
Well,
like a
acting,
real
air
actor.
quotes.
But I was 4. I played that game before I could read English. So like the idea of emotional attachment to anybody of the opposite gender is completely
I admit, when I was
insane.
little, I had a lot of crushes on fictional characters, but you guys have already received short lists of them anyway.
I don't know about
have.
crush, but I think the first time I got an emotional connection to a female character in a video game was probably the escort quest character you take around in Metal Gear Solid 2,
Emma?
who just dies horribly.
Yeah. Right after she learns, like...
I think she's in the
that,
game for like an hour.
Yeah, she's in the game for an hour,
Oh,
and then, like, right
So-
after she dies, her brother is like, I slept with her mom. And you're like, what the hell is going on in this game?
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Otacon's
slept
family
with
is
his
like
stepmom.
yeah.
Yeah. Wait,
Otac-
and did that
And
result
you find
in the
out
girl?
that fact, like, right after
I don't
his
think Emma's
half-sister
different in age
dies.
enough to be an offspring of Otacon.
Oh.
I don't think
No,
it's like
no,
that,
no.
no.
It
Oh,
wasn't,
okay.
That's
like...
too weird
But
even for
that is
Kojima.
that-
I'm just thinking of that, and that is a very real possibility.
yeah, actually, it could work out. You could be half siblings and their dad.
I just realized
Holy
that I said the
shit.
Phrase, I said the phrase "that's too weird for Kojima," knowing full well that this is the year where he put out a trailer of like naked Norman Reedus hugging an invisible baby.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
game.
I can't wait for whatever that is.
I would like to see the barest of minimum
wait.
of
Wasn't
gameplay
Wasn't the
to
premise
get my opinion on that one.
something along the lines of, was he the father of the baby?
No.
What was going on? Like, was
no,
he
no.
pregnant?
Oh, Norman Reedus for Death Standing?
Nobody knows what
Nobody
that
knows.
movie is. I mean, game is.
Nobody has a clue.
I thought there was
It's not out
something in
yet.
that about male pregnancy.
The game's not out yet.
No.
We don't know anything about it.
Yeah, we know nothing.
There's 2 1-minute trailers that have nothing in common besides the appearance of a baby at some point. And
Yes.
unless they put out press releases or something, nobody knows what the game is. That's what last I checked. I don't even know if we know the genre yet, which is weird to think about.
Puzzle.
I mean, personally, I'm
He's just
hoping...
stacking babies.
It's actually
I'm
a
just
match 3.
hoping... I'm just hoping it's like a slightly different Metal Gear Solid-ish type game, because that genre
Metal Gear
is...
babies.
Well, like, that genre is depressingly empty, comparatively, of,
Yeah.
like, quality stealth action shooters. Like,
I was gonna make one, then I realized it's too hard.
it's hard. Yeah.
Like
Stealth
your
games.
art assets alone and your level design
Survival
are
horror, last I heard.
insanely
Yeah,
expensive.
I mean, it would make sense if he didn't get to do PT.
Now,
He'd want to continue and
I
make...
mean, he's been trying to
That's a good
escape
point.
Metal
PT.
Gear for
Aside-
decades.
Yeah.
aside from things like Evolve, have there ever been games in which you play the monster that heroes are trying to slay?
Nintendo Land.
Rampage. Nintendo Land?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, we're talking about,
yeah.
like...
Kind of.
I mean,
Nintendo
you're
Land
not
has
played a
multiple
wrong.
modes
Sephiroth
where
for,
what if
like-
you play as the monster that all the players are going after?
You played as Sephiroth for like 30 minutes in Final Fantasy VII, and that's actually a really, really cool sequence.
Yeah, that actually... That...
I mean-
that was actually the last thing I did for Final Fantasy, and going back to, like, the regular old cast, I was just like, I have suddenly lost interest.
I mean,
Because
one
right
of,
now,
Oh god, it's such a cool sequence.
you guys know about some of the cool modes in Nintendo Land? Like, there's one
No.
where
Oh, yeah.
one of you has the gamepad and everyone else is just using the screen and Wiimotes, and you're playing like you're basically playing Luigi's Mansion, where you have little flashlights and you're going around. And but the guy on the
Damn, that sounds cool.
The guy on the gamepad
It's-
is the ghost, and only they can see where they are. And so, and only light sources reveal you on the screen. So you're basically survival horror-y, like taking down all of the Luigis. And it's a
That's
I
five-player
really
game.
like
actually pretty
the-
funny sounding.
Yeah,
I really liked the
Unfortunately, the Wii
tag
U launched
one.
with its best game.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine some kind of cool campaign in which you are the creature that's misunderstood. Maybe you're made into that form. Something along
Warcraft,
those
you can play as
lines.
the Xur.
I thought you were asking for stuff along the
orcs.
lines of Evolve.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
no.
there you go.
I'm asking.
Well, Evolve
Uh,
was the premise she gave out.
the creature
No,
as the protagonist.
I have an answer for
Berseria?
Bird.
Tales of Berseria,
what?
you're basically the monsters in Bloodborne fighting against the religion in Bloodborne.
That's true.
I want to roll back to Bird's question. Sarah Kerrigan.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You play
She
Sarah
was.
Kerrigan in StarCraft.
I think she was the first female character I had any level
Oh, wait,
of an
that was your
emotional
waifu?
connection to.
Dude,
Whoa! Before or after?
And then I picked up Brood War a couple of years
yeah,
later,
before
and I was
or after?
like, "Oh
That's
my
a really
god!"
important question.
important.
Yeah, So here's the thing.
Important
Here's my
questions
tale
for
for
your internal
StarCraft.
organs.
I played up until I played through the human campaign and then stopped. So she was dead.
Oh.
And then couple years
Surprise!
later, we pick up Brood War, and it's like Sarah Kerrigan's back, and I'm like, oh sweet. And then I saw like the unit, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then so I have to go back and play through the Zerg and Protast campaigns to understand what the hell happened. And so I do that, and it's like, oh, that's
one of the funniest stories I've ever heard for people reacting to Sarah Kerrigan.
The insectoid
she-
stuff interesting.
I mean, I do, but like, here's this like sassy female sniper who's like actively probably one of the more helpful characters in the entire cast, and so on and so forth. And then she dies. She
Blizzard
gets
had good
betrayed, really, really badly. And
I
for
feel
most
like
people,
Blizzard
you think
is
she's
a company
just
that can write. They just need to stop writing the same
They just
story.
got really, really lazy. Overwatch
Well, no,
has
they just
actually
need,
pretty good writing.
They just need to only make new things.
I agree. They seem to run out of steam.
They take all their existing things and I'm like, I'm going to make 17 more games and lore concepts around this one property until it's just a bloated nightmare and it becomes the Marvel
I noticed
Cinematic
that there are
Universe.
a lot of people that were upset about Illidan's history being rewritten.
Yeah, they did that a lot
slightly
with World of
so
Warcraft.
that it put him in a more favorable light, and then they're like, "Oh yes, and now he's destined to save the universe."
Yeah.
And it is okay. Interesting.
I try
I
not
like
to think too
Overwatch.
hard about it.
Because
Yeah.
it has a lot of waifus.
I like the idea of Overwatch. I would like to play not Overwatch to experience the Overwatch universe. Competitive shooters feel very limited for me in storytelling, and I'd love to play like something else.
As
Hell,
somebody
I'd
who
love-
wasn't paying attention, Overwatch felt like such a bad fake out for me because I saw all these cool looking characters and what looked like a promising storyline, and then have the realization that it's actually just an arena shooter, and none
Yeah.
of that is in the shooter. Basically, it's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
the-
this
But
is
for
it's-
whatever it's
justification
worth,
for why
it's
they're
a
fighting.
really good game, I think.
it's like somebody made an
I
arena
still
shooter
like
and then
it.
wrote their own fan fiction.
Yeah, kind of.
That's kind of what Overwatch and Team Fortress feel like at some point because they're such
Yeah.
they're so completely devoid of any actual story in the gameplay
Yeah.
itself.
Oh, that's true. But if you like comic strips, then you can read the Overwatch comics.
Yeah, and I found that unfortunate with fighting games too, because
Yeah.
in fighting games,
Same thing.
there are characters that might have a beef with one another because, you killed my father.
Oh yeah, the
or
Street
whatever,
the Street Fighter universe is nuts.
So
Not like anybody knows about it.
They have motivations behind their hatred for one another, but many of the you don't see that play out except for the couple snippets of conversation they have with one
The
another.
pre-fight dialogue.
That's actually what's progressing a lot nowadays, is that more recent fighting games often have almost weirdly elaborate storylines in their campaign
Yeah.
modes. Because they
Right.
used to, what happened before is that the story mode was based on they were predominantly made for arcades. Like, put in your quarters and play this character and try not to die, or
Had
you
to
put
be
in more
short.
quarters. So as a result, the entire campaign mode was designed around that concept. It was like a decrepit system, like how platformers still have lives and continues for some reason. Like the arcade fighters would just be like, oh, you fight 8 enemies and then a final boss and it ends every single time. And so every single campaign was built around that exact structure unfailingly. But nowadays you have stuff like the new Mortal Kombat games and even Devil May Cry. Dead or Alive 5 have like 5 to 10 hour multiple cutscene linear storytelling campaign modes now.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised at how much time I actually spent playing the Super Smash Bros. Brawl campaign mode,
Indulge
how
us
they-
about that story.
Oh yeah, that's Subspace Emissary.
Yeah.
Subspace Emissary.
Yeah,
and
or
it's
Abyss
just,
Odyssey, in other words.
and
Yeah.
I just find it weird because I'm thinking about it. These characters would have never interacted with one another before, and they just appear. They encounter one another. If it's like Kirby or someone else, they're like, "Oh," or like, "Hey, let's team up." And they're like, "Okay." And well,
So,
you know.
can you voice act my game?
But like specifically in a way that makes it clear every person's the same person. Like on purpose.
Yeah.
So,
I like
I've
your
actually-
tough guy voice a lot.
I've actually gotten a couple of
beefy.
emails from
I'm gonna
people
punch
asking
you.
me to. I've got a couple of emails asking me to voice act their game, and I was like, "That sounds cool." And then I look at the game. And I'm
emails. I thought
like,
you said
"That's not-"
females.
No.
I was
Yeah.
like, that's okay.
And
and I thought you said emails. That's bad. Emails.
Emails. Yeah, but the problem is they're very definitively like school projects, and I'm like,
Right.
No, that's why. Okay.
yeah. Well, like I don't mind the idea of voice acting a game for somebody, but like, please show me like you got the chops for it, because I'd
I
rather
was
not
gonna
my
say
like
you don't want your voice is tied up to a shit product.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
diminishes
would be
your
scared of the
brand.
pressure, but yeah, it's a totally different thing if somebody's just like, "Hey, can you help me with my school project? I need voices for my thing," and I'm like, "But I got stuff to do."
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
love
Really.
doing all the voices in Nefarious, and I mean the creators of the game really enjoyed watching our playthrough too. And when we saw them at PAX, they were just they were so nice. I think it was one of the developers and then his girlfriend or his wife, and we were chatting with them, and they thought it was hilarious that Wander had actually sniped a female character from me, and it was the dwarf princess. Except she was just supposed to be like badass warrior kind of character. Burps aloud, you name it.
And I bet Wander was like, I like butterflies.
No.
Oh.
Do your dwarf princess voice.
You mean the like chain smoker kind of princess voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Pretty much, he did
That's
that.
like a pet people voice acting line.
Right. So, but the thing is, she spoke like that. So he voiced her like
Dr.
that,
Girlfriend.
and the developers were just like, we couldn't unhear that.
Really.
That just became her voice in their head, which is not what they had intended.
I want to hear Shell do her like tough guy voice in a conversation with Wander doing his
Girly
dwarven
voice?
warrior princess voice.
We did that in our Nefarious playthrough a couple of times. Like we were switching voices around.
I did have to play the flamboyant Oni prince
Yeah.
that
So,
ended up with him.
so here's the thing: the perfect part of this. So let's roll back. Nefarious is a platformer where you're playing as the villain, and it's kind of like your classic, Mega Man style
I
jump
really
and
liked
shoot
his
type
pro
platformer
voice.
type game.
It was awesome.
Lemons.
But
What
it
the
was.
lemons?
It was really satisfying and charming and well written. The gameplay was
the
generic.
characters are so endearing.
The boss battles were really fun because you were always the boss as opposed to the the hero. So there was like a Sonic boss battle where you're Eggman with the chain ball and you're trying to hit the Dash the bee, who's totally supposed to be Sonic the Hedgehog. And so stuff like that. It was actually really fun, and I'd recommend people pick it up. But so we were voice acting the characters because there was just a little bit at the very beginning, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, I have to voice act this whole thing myself. All right, fine. And so I pulled.
I was upset because I saw that there
she
were
was
female
making
voice
noises
actors.
at me like 2 minutes into the video, and I'm like, fine, let's do this. So every level pretty much had the same concept. You go, at least the first couple ones, where you go to the place, you kidnap the princess, and then add them to your ship, and eventually you're supposed to use them to fire your death ray, because princesses are magic or something. And so like the first one was kind of very classically Princess Peach, and they had references left and right. The second was the insect princess, who really wasn't a reference to anywhere.
She was, Princess Apoidia.
And then there was a dwarf princess and the ogre prince, and this is like Japanese style ogre. So, like, red
They were
horns.
supposed to abduct the princess,
Yeah.
but she ended up
Yeah.
punching the main character.
Yeah, the princess of the Ogre Kingdom was too big and burly, so she slugs you right into the air, and you land next to the prince, who's like, "Oh my!" At which point you kidnap him instead because you're an equal opportunity villain. But so every
That's
time
pretty fucking funny.
it was
sounding.
great. But so every time we would run into a new character, we'd trade off voices, and usually she handles females, I handle males. But with the Dwarven princess, I had said, no, I'm gonna handle the princess. You have the Dwarven hero, and so she was doing kind of like this generic hero voice for the.
I'm the Viking.
Yeah,
boy.
there we go.
You know, that kind of thing.
And I was, chain smoker voice.
Tough Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Aw.
He looked it. That was actually a really
He
great
had a
boss fight
huge-
too.
He had a huge smile on. It
Yeah,
was weird.
it was pretty appropriate.
He was just like,
Ludo, we're
Off
gonna
with
go
you,
lift
you.
some weights. Ha ha.
you
Yeah.
Dave.
But so we kidnapped the ogre prince, and somewhere along the way, I just called it. It's like, watch just him end up with the dwarven princess
Because
by
the
the end
Dwarf
of the game.
Kingdom and the Oni Kingdom were at
Like
war.
there was some kind of basis for it, and then like halfway through the game, they just have a dating show
The
mission.
dating show was so much fun.
It's just straight up
That's
like
great.
a multiple choice.
That's
like
great.
pick your answers, see what happens with the dialogue, and by the end of it, the ogre prince has like declared his undying love for the dwarven princess, and we're just sitting there kind of speechless and cracking up because she had to voice the prince and I had to voice the princess. And
They
just
had the easier job of it. I had to
The
tell a
meant
huge
to be.
soliloquy.
yeah, it was great, and we had no way of planning that apart from, I guess, luck and whatever. And we got to meet the dev at PAX, which was great. Mm-hmm. Apparently, me going to PAX though, like, fucked up Stainless's life really bad though.
Yeah, apparently you cursed him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. He needed a good cursing.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, random thought.
Yes.
Floatia.
Floatia.
Thank
Yeah?
you. It's not Floatia. It's
Yeah.
Floatia.
I thought it would be Floatia. Well,
They
Right,
never-
there's a country called Croatia.
we've been to Croatia. We lived in Croatia for 3 months.
Yes.
I have
But
no idea what's
it's
happening.
FLOTIA. There's no A in there.
It's FL.
Is it
isn't
like
it FL?
Floatia?
No, it's
ATIA.
There should be an A after it.
no. There isn't. It's FLOTIA.
It's FLOATIA.
Well, then maybe it would be Floatia.
The Quarian
We're
Flotilla.
Flo-
We're talking about
But
my
I'm
Digimon
Digimon.
playthrough. It's
Digimon.
it's just Floatia.
You guys can keep this conversation. I don't want
Digimon
it.
World Next Order Floatia City FLOATIA.
Have I just been ignoring
You've
that
been
A the
misreading
entire
it the
time?
entire game, dude.
All right, fine. I'll switch it.
I know it sounded
Honestly, I
peculiar.
No,
was
you
too
can't
busy.
switch it now.
Okay, fine.
You should call it
I just
something
want to
completely
make you feel
different
bad.
So
with no explanation.
can I
and
talk
never
about that
acknowledge
game
it.
for a little while?
Actually, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so
I've suddenly
that-
watched enough of it.
It's
Is it the same
it's
company?
probably what was that?
yeah.
Is it the same company as the last one? that
It's
you
like the
got
same
sick
kind of like world.
Different
It uses
dev,
a lot of
I
same
think.
characters.
Yeah, I mean it's Namco Bandai. Oh, it
I think
could
it has
be the
to be
same
Namco
damn time.
Bandai because of publishing for that rights,
Yeah.
probably.
That's an interesting question. I don't know if it's the same team that made it. That'd be a pretty quick turnaround, but they do have a lot of common elements. Like even a couple of the characters are the same, which
Oh
is
yeah.
kind of dumb in its own way. But whatever. Anyway,
I was gonna
it's
say,
a lot better than
use a lot
Cyber
of same
Sleuth.
characters. Okay, good. Yeah, yeah.
I that is a big thing for me because Cyber Sleuth was like weird torture.
Weird torture.
Believe me, as an audience member, we felt the same way a lot of times.
But I like it. It's effectively they're like, you know what game did really well for us? That first game we made. Let's make another one of those. And
Cyber Sleuth is made by a completely different company. Wow.
huh. I guess they probably
interesting.
just have like
Reused assets or something?
well,
'Cause the animation looks
no,
very similar.
they don't have reused assets. It's very obviously that this whomever made this one was trying a little bit harder. One thing about Cyber Sleuth that I always ran into as a kind of serious annoyance was they all had the exact same reflection on them. Like, you know how when you have a game and you don't really want to try and program proper reflections in, you just
Yeah.
You create
You
a
just
weird
give it-
globe
Why are
texture
the
that's going to be
Digimon
all of
characters
the
always
reflections.
so
Yeah,
hot?
but it was something. It was outside. Like it was the outside of a building, and you
Yeah.
could tell, and you could
It's like-
see it every
It's like
time.
it's like how you can look at a window in a dark alley in a video game, and then see the reflections clear like a forest, and you're like, what?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
Borderlands was the worst about that.
Next Order came out like 2 years ago.
The game you're playing?
Digimon World Next
Huh.
Order?
Really? That's
In Japan or in the United
Really?
States?
I assume you're talking about the Japanese release.
Yeah.
Unless you
Yeah,
somehow
because it came out in
had a massive fluke.
2016.
Yeah, because
I gotta look this up because
I mean,
Japanese
release dates
In
are all
North
over
America,
the
it
place
came
for
out
Japanese
January
games.
31st.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad a lot of games though have started to do
instantaneous.
yeah.
Not JRPGs though.
Well,
Only
Not
the
all
giant,
of them.
only the giant
Well,
companies like Square Enix
yeah.
and Capcom
Yeah.
actually have worldwide releases for like Resident Evil and Final Fantasy. Like Tales came out like a year ago in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm playing it now. 'cause
Okay.
It's brand new for us.
No,
Speaking of games that
actually,
use using assets, by the way, that has like the exact monsters and dungeons and items from Zestiria.
Yeah, so Next Order came out
March?
to the Vita a year ago. Less than a year ago. March last year. So Cyber Sleuth definitely came before. And then it got ported to the PS4 globally this year. This month,
That'd be weird
actually.
if we got them out of order.
Yeah, the weird part is Japan actually gets the PS4 release last. It's not even out yet for PS4 for them.
Funny.
They get it
It
at the end
shows
of
how low
February.
priority home consoles are in Japan now.
Well, it was
Yeah.
already released on the PlayStation Vita, whatever it's called.
Vita.
I don't
Yeah,
have my
it-
glasses on, so just see a V.
Yeah, it was on the Vita, which
Okay, that's what it's called.
I hate
sorry, I was
that.
gonna
I
try
hate
to read it for
I
you.
hate that that's a thing that devs are co-releasing on both. I know they have to do it because it makes a lot more money, but like the environments we've been playing Twilight Princess at the same time, and the environments in Twilight Princess actually look better, like just more care and detail than the ones in Cyber Sleuth, which to some degree is like environments aren't a priority for them, but on the other side it's just like I was looking at the grass
That was made
texture
10 years
and
ago.
you know, like when you're looking at a bad grass texture and it all starts to blend together and look like this pixely green mess.
Not to
I don't like
mention,
it when it looks
not
like
to
it's
mention Vita
flattened
game
hay.
aliasing.
Yeah.
Flattened
Yeah.
hay on the ground does not look good.
Yeah, so like it's a good port, but it's very obviously like held back by their by the fact that it was mobile. But yeah, the game itself is actually quite good, you know, decent stock of Digimon. The plot is unmentionable, but like who gives a shit? And it just I don't know, it feels like a Digimon
Plot's
game for
important,
once, which I'm
kid.
really happy
Have you
about.
become the very best?
No. I get my ass kicked
Have you wanted
like
to?
every No, not really.
No,
I'm more
Digimon's the
interested in
show where
catching
you
up-
build up a father figure and murder him in front of your eyes.
Yes.
Oh, you.
That's all I remember about Digimon anymore.
Yeah.
All I remember is the Digimon movie, which is nonsense, and Leomon.
I want to become a father figure
Digimon movie's
and
weird.
get
It's like
murdered
3
in front of my
movies.
kids.
What is that?
Well, yeah, the US
one?
release is actually 1, 2, and 4 or something like that. For like, you know that like weird dream sequence that was kind of played? That was the first Digimon movie, like the real first Digimon movie, but for Japan. And then the one with Diaboromon was like 1 or 3 or 2 or 3 or something like that. And then the other one that was like the second half of the movie was completely different and later. I watched them all in the order later, and I was like, this makes a lot more sense, owing to the fact that now I know they're actually different movies as opposed to some kind of connected plot line.
I like how this show that explicitly is in Japanese and takes place in Japan just was like, let's put kids in America in it. That'll trick people.
Well,
Now
for
it's
the
an
second
American
movie, they
movie.
actually were in the U.S. randomly.
Hey, so Wander, you played Cyber Sleuth, right?
Yeah.
You played. Were you a cop in Cyber Sleuth?
What, like Shadowrun? Is that why it's called?
No,
Cyber
I'm just
Sleuth?
saying, like,
No, Bert is pulling my leg.
no, I'm not.
I can feel the tugging. You're
No,
just some
no,
kid
no.
that gets shanghaied into doing some lady's work for her, and then it turns out she's actually dead the entire time, and actually a Digimon posing as a dead woman, so that she can get you to do all of her work for her. Because
see, you
she
never
has to
put
keep it on the
anyone
down low.
when you were
At
playing that
least he
game. You
wasn't
never,
a tidal
you never
wave hallucination of his father or something.
Yeah.
when you were playing that game, you never put anyone under arrest or Dramon.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. That was bad. I could
Fuck
smell
you.
the buildup.
There was a sliding scale between us, Bird, and it's gone real far the other way all of a sudden. And like I was leading for a while, but I think you just took it back.
So, have
I
we
have
got
no
any
idea
more
what you just said,
questions?
but I'm happy with myself.
You've defeated me. I've said some really dumb shit, but
Oh,
I can't
I
now.
see. I
Oh,
see
you
what
have
you're
not
saying.
been. You have not been listening to this bastard's like Conan puns this past week. They are
Dear Lord.
horrifying.
Well,
where you have your
I broke my
cult?
rule about playing video games in the podcast, and now I'm done.
What are you doing?
I just did my entire third playthrough of Nier during the first part of this podcast, which is apparently really easy because everything dies in one hit and you can skip all the dialogue.
Well, I
Well,
guess
if it works.
Keith can never sass us ever again. Oh yeah, do we have any questions for today?
We do have
Yeah.
I was
questions.
asking about.
We even have some questions left over because of how long it's been.
Yep.
Things just like, what are you doing for Christmas? Wonders.
Yeah.
Tons of questions. Oh, it's like when we release videos very, very, very late in current events.
I have an
already
unanswered
passed.
question from January 2nd,
Okay.
because that's how long
Okay.
it's been.
Okay.
Oh no, it's him
Happy
again.
New Year.
Oh
What
no,
are
it's
you
him
up to?
again. Oh no.
Oh, the really long question, man.
A question again. Sorry for the last one. Hello, I've returned to the question. Now, before you roll your eyes, I gotta say sorry for the last one. My head wasn't thinking straight at the time, but never mind that. Here's the question. I'll be trying my best using grammar and not whatever grammar I used for the last one. So let's begin with what's going on. Bird, you might want to what? You might want whatever math machine because this might be a long one. So you and a few friends as whoever is podcasting with you, went on a road trip. All it was good until a car slammed into the back right when you were turning. Your car is damaged, but everybody is fine. But both of your back wheels are popped. I'm pulling some D&D crap, I know. You have about 30 minutes. You're about 30 minutes away from a gas station, but your car can only move half the average speed. To make things worse, it is that it'll take you about 27 minutes to run out of gas, and walking to the gas station would take 70 minutes. If you're confused by the math, A, 30-minute, B, half of average car speed, find the amount of time it would take to get to the station. Do C, 27 min, D is option 2, but 70 min there and back in total. So I hope this doesn't confuse you. If it does, just say, YPK, why do you do this to us once more? Anyways, have fun answering it. And now
Do you know what
the
I
only
would do?
robotic
You're
Phoenix
still
is
reading
going
this? I
back
got up
into
to go
its
get a
lair.
drink.
Do you know what I would do? I would take the car most of the way, walk the way, and then get the gas back to the car. Well, at the tires. Wait, we have to get tires though. So it's not just about gas.
I don't know. Don't stop poking me. I don't know this question. I decided to remove myself from the situation instead.
It was actually funny because we did have to limp back from San Antonio to Dallas slightly because of car malfunctions.
I think I got the answer.
Is it 12?
Nope. You'll find out what the answer is later when
In the next
Keith edits the
podcast.
video. Yeah.
What the fuck? I have to reread it because I was just like, what was I even reading?
Okay. Do we have any?
Do we have a real
questions?
question?
Is this a math question or is it just a hypothetical question? Because if it's just a hypothetical, I would just drive as close
Keith,
as possible and then walk for
Give
3
a
minutes.
real question, please.
Like,
a
it's not
real
even a real
question
problem.
now.
Stop.
All right. Michael Leone asks, what do you think about the Switch and Nintendo as a whole? I would like to know.
Oh shit! I never actually watched that. That's
I don't know
old
shit about
news
the Switch.
now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is from January 15th.
Well, I mean, you pre-ordered it.
yeah, I
Wonder.
pre-ordered the Switch. I'm looking forward to it.
And I mean,
I
I'd
didn't
be
pre-order,
interested
but I'm
in-
gonna pick one up.
I'm going to be
It's
interested in
cheap.
seeing how multiplayer plays with
Bird, get a
each
PS4 first,
hand's
probably.
controller.
Why not?
Like separated and given to the player number 1 and player number 2? How will it work?
I think it's a neat idea, but like honestly, I
Each
could
have
give
a joystick and a pad, right?
The thing is, like, party games like that though aren't very well supported historically.
Have I heard right that you can download DS games on it?
Ooh, that'd be neat.
Because
Well,
that
then
means you could
makes me
record
wonder,
them
what's going to happen
because
with
HDMI.
handhelds? Is there still going to be a market for handhelds if everyone's encouraged to get a system?
I
There will
think-
always
yeah.
be a market for handheld.
I think the
especially
whole
in Japan.
point of it is to be a handheld and a system. That's the whole
Yeah.
point. Is that the last several.
If they can bridge the gap with the Switch, I'm totally down. I want a Monster Hunter on a platform that I can actually record it.
I think the whole point is that Nintendo's handhelds historically are like some of the most successful consoles ever made,
yeah.
but
Absolutely.
most of its home consoles really struggle in one way or
Yeah,
another,
because-
or always.
PlayStation's handhelds, are they even doing well?
No.
They're gone.
PlayStation.
Well, the PSP
Vita
was
does
absurdly.
okay.
The PSP was absurdly successful. People
Yeah.
lose track of that because it felt like no one was using them. But when you look at sales figures, it's actually one of the top-selling consoles ever.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
The PSV is a massive failure that they essentially themselves ignore at this point, which is really frustrating if you're like me and you bought a PS TV because you wanted to use it, and the moment it came out, they stopped talking about it forever and never supported it again. And I'm like, that was really messed up.
They weren't going to
Yeah,
reimburse you?
I loved my
put-
PSP.
No, you can
I
use
loved
it.
my PSP more than my DS, honestly.
You can use a PS TV, the PlayStation Vita TV thing. The problem is just that they put so little support into it, you literally can't even go on their store and consistently get a check mark yes or no as to whether or not a Vita game will work on your TV. Like it's like total trial and error or fan like databases to figure out whether or not a game on the PlayStation Marketplace will work on the PS TV, a product they sold in stores and still, I think technically still do at GameStops a little bit.
Yeah, and then obviously Microsoft and Xbox and stuff, they never went into handhelds.
There were rumors for a while, but it looks like they've kind of
Yeah, I just think
backed away
that
from the
market
idea.
is damn hard to break into. Very expensive.
Well, part of the problem is mobile is such a heavy market to compete with.
Well, now
Yeah.
everyone's having phones that they don't necessarily have the same functionality as a handheld system.
Yeah,
but
so-
they're trying.
Yeah, I've also noticed Nintendo seems to be starting to edge into mobile as well. They had Pokemon Go, which
Pokemon
was
Go,
crazy,
And then their Mario
crazy
thing.
successful. Yeah, they had.
which I've heard kind of missed the mark.
I didn't hear much about the Mario thing.
heard it
What I
wasn't
did hear
good.
though is
We never podcasted, did we, about my falling out of love with Pokemon Go?
No,
I think
we didn't.
I had already complained about how, because they don't have the like roaming Wi-Fi and everything, that it was pretty much a fruitless endeavor.
Yeah, but that's
I
Fruitless
uninstalled it.
Endeavor really sums up a lot of the problems.
That's kind of that's kind of an
game.
unfair one though, because it
That's
is
true.
like it's inherently an online game, with a lot of its
Right.
mechanics. So saying that you can't play it because you don't have internet access is kind of unfair. It's just more like a
Yeah.
personal.
It's because
it's just a personal
I could
barrier.
only
Yeah.
catch Pokemon if it was within the house, the store, the library.
But again,
place
that's
with
not a
Wi-Fi.
valid complaint because it's like complaining you can't play WoW because you don't have an internet connection. It's like, yeah,
I know, but
Yeah.
the thing is, phone
It's-
plans.
but shelf.
It's
Fine.
it's a personal thing. It's way more valid to complain when Dragon Age Origins stops working because your internet connection died, which is a real thing that
Yeah.
happens in Dragon Age Origins. Because it was, if you bought any DLC, then your file was now an always online file. So if you ever lost internet, you couldn't play your save file that had DLC on it forever until the internet came back on.
Oh.
Like that kind of shit's bullshit because it's a single player game and inherently not attached to phone platforms and stuff like that. But no,
That's one thing I wonder about Steam. Since everything is online,
it varies.
like,
For me-
can you play Steam games off of your computer without internet, or no?
It varies.
if you have time to prepare, usually.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of set stuff up for offline. Like what I did, I was gone for a whole month for like my big final geology course, and we were out in the field the whole time. So had an offline only laptop there to do my all my report work and everything. And I was playing some of the Game of Thrones RPG, and I was playing the Penny Arcade RPGs on my computer with no internet because I, at the time, had preloaded them to be enabled for playing offline. But Steam changes so often that I don't even know how it works now. But at the time, you had to basically opt into being able to play certain games offline in advance, and it would like sign you off. And I think you had a time limit for how long you could go without connecting to the internet again, of like X number of weeks or something, to get it to stop you from completely pirating it somehow via that. But what happened to me is that a while ago, in one of our other previous gaps between podcasts where we couldn't meet up for a while, I was gone for my mom's wedding. We were going to Pismo Beach, and Pismo Beach is this big tourist destination with tons of population and everything, and a bunch of destinations everywhere, and landmarks. Most
And
importantly,
what sort of Pokemons were there?
so when I played Pokemon, I was getting like 7 new Pokemon a day I'd never seen before, and there was like a Pokestop on every corner, and it was like you could just play the game, and it was it's totally a Skinner's box. It's like the game doesn't have good mechanics. Like fighting is
No, it doesn't.
awful in that game.
Uh-huh.
It's like, as somebody, I already am not particularly into actual Pokemon for combat, so having something that's such a farce of that was almost embarrassing. How bad Pokemon Go is by comparison, even to that. Like where you're just tapping a screen to attack and holding it to do a special, and there's almost
Also-
it's mostly just stat fighting.
To evolve Pokemon, you didn't train them. You actually had to catch more of the same variety of
Yes.
Pokemon.
Yeah, and then
merge
mash
them
it up
together.
into Pokemon, like, meal.
Pokemon candy.
Oh, ew! That's
Yeah, no, that's how it worked.
Gross.
You had to, if you wanted to like level up your Rattata or whatever, you had to catch a bunch of like worse Rattata and turn them into candy.
Yep.
Which I mean is
Yep.
more like protein powder.
It's abstracted
And then,
like you're giving them to the professor and he gives you the candy, but the only way to interpret it moment to moment is it totally feels like you're just mulching these things into candy. And so
just put the Pikachu in the wood
like,
chipper.
the story of Pokemon Go is just the silent genocide. But what happened is, like, I was having fun with it at Pismo in a weird way, just because it was engaging to just screw around with there's something engaging about, like, oh, walk to that coffee shop and it gives you like a Pokestop and you spin it and like potions and Pokeballs come out and all this other nonsense. And I was hyped to the point where it was right when the Pokemon wrist thing came out that was going to help you go for walks without holding out the phone constantly, because you could just press a button on this wrist thing that would vibrate to try to catch Pokemon as you were going on walks. So I'm like, this is great. Then I get back home to my home environment and remember exactly why I don't play the game, which is because the entire neighborhood has
Dratini.
nothing. Not even the Dratini thing. Like, that's what got me in the first place, was that we started off as a Dratini nest, so I was surrounded by rare Pokemon. And for the first 10 to 15 levels of that game, you level up often enough that just the bonus from leveling up gives you so many Pokeballs you don't really have to worry about them so much. But if you play
Then
this
you have to buy
game
'em.
online, I mean, once you get to a certain level, they stop getting level up bonuses, and so you have to grind the resources. But the only way to get these resources without buying them is to go to a Pokestop and to spin the thing, and then hope that the 3 items it gives you are some number of Pokeballs, and then you have to wait 5 minutes for it to be usable again. And that's supposed to encourage you to walk around, because you're supposed to be doing like a big multi-mile like lap that covers a whole bunch of Pokestops, and you could just keep spinning all of them, which is what I could do at Pismo. In my neighborhood, if I walk 2 miles, I get to 1 other Pokestop, which takes way more than 5 minutes. But also, like, there's just nothing. If you live in a residential area, or especially if you live in a remote
City?
or rural
I was
location,
gonna say,
you're screwed.
No, cities
The
got
best
it.
part of Pokemon Go is that, like, in the world of Pokemon, you travel into, like, woods and fields to catch Pokemon. In the
Yeah,
world of
it's
Pokemon Go,
unplayable.
you travel to Walmarts.
It's unplayable for 2 reasons. 1, the fact that you won't have resources out in the middle of nowhere, and 2, that you're less likely to have the game work in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
You're
so you
best
don't
off
go
playing this game
exploring
in
woods.
LA and New York
You go
and
to
stuff.
shopping malls.
And I don't understand the motivation to make a game that's specifically biased in favor of certain people living in certain regions for some reason.
I mean,
They
the
didn't
way
expect it to be popular.
no, they
course
did.
they did.
Their previous one was crazy popular, and let's be honest, it's a Pokemon game. Of course, it's going to be popular. Do you guys? I guess maybe you guys didn't. Were a little insulated from this. Do you remember when the Pokewalkers were a thing? When Heart
Kind
Gold
of,
and Soul
yeah.
Silver came out?
Yeah,
I remember
My-
Pickles mentioning it, but that's about it.
My college was covered in people wearing those things, and
That's because they
it
got
was
in-game
it was nuts.
loot.
People are into that, and like even now, if you wanted to get a Pokewalker,
It costs
it's
a
like
lot,
a couple $100. There's no way Nintendo didn't already have some inkling that this is going to be crazy popular. And for Niantic, it was Niantic, right?
Yeah.
They had already made one of these games. Like Pokemon Go is effectively just a carbon
They just
copy of their
slapped a
previous
skin
game.
on
Yeah,
top
they
of
slapped a
another
skin
game.
over it.
Yep.
Which is fine. They can do whatever. But it's one of those where they had all the information they needed to realize, yep, this is going to be incredibly popular. And they kind of didn't capitalize on it. Like, they had the opportunity to make possibly one of the, like, most popular games ever and, like, long-running interesting things. And what they did instead was launched early access and then kind of did nothing. Like,
It's a super
They had-
undercooked
Yeah, that's
game
what killed
mechanically.
Pokemon Go.
yeah.
It did nothing.
The problem with this, like, it's a two-pronged problem, because on one hand, it's not a good game. It has, like, no mechanics to it, and there's not much to actually play in the game itself. But two, you have to fight to just play it. Like, it's actively a hard thing to play for many people, because you can't... Like, I have to go commute somewhere to where it's playable, basically.
Yeah.
And that's not even
Yeah.
exercise. That's just, I have to go commute somewhere else where it's playable. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that for a phone game.
If I were to design something similar, I'd probably just make it that you randomly run into Pokemon while you're walking around, and plays like Pokemon. You just have random
Yeah, like real
encounters.
Pokemon.
Yeah, and then you'd have like specific gyms and locations. So like if you go to a CVS, it's a item store and stuff like that. And if you want to monetize it, just freaking monetize. Just increase your chance of finding Pokemon or something
Think
like
of
that.
the perspective of like the shop owners, though. Like having people.
They
come
loved
in-
it though. Like all you'd have to do
Yeah.
is partner. All you'd have to do is partner off with Starbucks and be like, "Yo, we're gonna have this thing that's gonna have a bunch of people coming in."
You don't even
You
need
know,
partnerships.
effectively-
People are just into
But-
it. Like,
but
I went to a
people-
Jamba Juice that gave you a discount for showing you your Pokemon collection.
Oh, so that way that they wouldn't entice people to spend money there while they're using their service. I see.
Yeah.
I mean, if the game is driving traffic to your front door, all you have to do is come up with a gimmick that encourages people to actually buy stuff at your store, and then
Yep.
you're all set.
Businesses would in fact buy Pokestops or lures. There we go.
I was
Yeah,
just thinking if your
there was
situation.
bars where they
Just
give you
like
a
get
free
people to
drink if
come.
you dropped a lure at their place.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of Keith's situation where you said that there were people driving by in cars or just hanging out around your house or apartment to
Oh, yeah.
catch the Dratini. That was a little bit inconvenience, was it?
Oh yeah, there was
Or
we just had high traffic all the time because people were finding out via Reddit that rare spawns were in my neighborhood, and all the old people in the area were getting really pissed off and like doing complaints, and there was police
Well, what are you
showing
gonna
up,
do?
and we even had one of those big yellow signs, like the light signs that looks like a light bright, whereas like Don't
Yeah.
Pokemon and Drive was on the entrance to our neighborhood.
That's pretty funny and ridiculous. Old people are crazy.
Well, what's funny is that the sign for that showed up the day after they rotated out the Dratini nest, so everyone was gone.
Yeah.
So they probably thought they won, but it was completely unrelated to any of
I
their
was going to
complaints.
say, they probably were like, our sign did a good job.
We
Thank
showed
you,
them perky mirrors.
Flowersdale County Police.
We really did it, America.
Okay, so this sort of sidetracked off of our Switch conversation. Do we want to continue with the Switch
Yeah,
or
sure.
any other questions?
I
Gonna get
just
one
wanted to
before
finish
I do
with the Switch. So I've been playing Twilight Princess with Shell, obviously. It's really fun. It's the first Zelda game I've like really gotten into. I tried Ocarina of Time as a kid, but I couldn't get into it because we rented it a bunch, and then we just never
You
had
got
the time to
crazy
sink into it.
saves.
And then I
Yeah.
got lost and several other things. Now that I'm playing it, after playing Souls-likes, it's kind of like, this is like if you took Souls-likes, added a bunch of puzzles, and made it
Yeah.
way easier. So I'm just running through, like, kicking
that's
ass
a
for
pretty
the most
fair.
part.
That's a very fair assessment,
Z-targeting.
I think.
Z-targeting
Yeah.
and animation priority attacks.
Exactly. And it's really satisfying for me. But the problem is the world is such a drab, ugly-looking thing. Partially because it was
Yeah.
made for the GameCube /
Well,
Wii,
also,
and
half
old
of it
and whatever.
is in the Twilight
Well,
realm.
I mean, there's nothing
it
wrong
came
with
from
that.
that era of grimdark.
Yeah,
everything.
well, grimdark and brown.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a 3D Zelda that doesn't open with like 3 hours of patronizing content?
Well, no.
Because you really have to push through some suffering to start playing a real
Yeah,
game.
you do.
And I've never made it. I've never made it past that part of any 3D Zelda game. That's the same
Yeah,
reason why
The only
Ocarina of
games I play
Time.
of Zelda are 3D ones.
like that's why I couldn't pick up the new Pokemon game either. I was looking at the beginning hours and I'm like,
Oh, it's
I hate
awful.
this. I hate looking
Yeah.
at this. I hate all
Yeah,
the conversations. I hate everything happening on the screen.
To be fair, I actually had that same reaction to Nioh's opening. At first, just because it's like, this isn't quite
By
real.
patronizing, you mean that they still treat you like a child that has never played the game before.
Yeah, like,
Right.
I hated
Yeah.
that
these
Pokemon.
games that use, like, these games that rely on us, people that were kids that played them originally, and, they still market it at us to some degree, they really need a setting for,
Experienced
veterans.
players.
Played it.
Are you an
well,
adult?
The assumption is
Would you like
that
to play
like
it as an adult now?
yeah, the assumption is that like for most of those people, they probably never played another video game at all between now and like picking it up again or something.
Yeah, which is fine from a marketing standpoint and from like it obviously works for them, but it's why I always bounce off. Because
Yeah,
I'm not one of those people, and I just want to play.
because you have played like at least a couple video games since Ocarina of Time or whatever.
Oh God, I tried Ocarina, and I got through the opening tutorial town that was all awful. Then you get to the first dungeon, and it's like, I'm invincible. It's spiders that are like, I'm invincible here, I'm vulnerable here, I'm gonna rotate over and over again. And the one puzzle,
no,
the one puzzle is to light a
game-
torch.
The skeletons.
That game
Yeah.
does
I'm
not
like, I
pick
don't
up
wanna play
until
this.
you getting through Ocarina of Time. You got to make it to where you leave that town, and then it becomes great.
It's also the first 3D Zelda game ever, so they
Yeah.
didn't even know what they were doing. So they
You just
It had to
want
be
more and more of
it had to
it,
be
though,
very
later.
clear with everything because nobody had like played a 3D game really at
Yeah.
that point. So it was like we have to really spell things out because this was back when like cameras were horrible in 3D games. And,
Yeah.
like,
Playing old
I
games
will
can
definitely
be
say-
fascinating.
Except for the bad controls, I'd probably say Skyward Sword is probably the smoothest thing. I think it's still like an hour before you actually get to anything, but it didn't feel as heavily tutorialized. But maybe that's just my.
I still couldn't. I mean, obviously, it's with my brother at home, but I couldn't defeat the first boss of the major temple because of the motion controls wigging out.
Yeah, the motion controls
Yeah,
were the
the
issue.
motion controls
That's part of the reason
sucked.
why I'm excited for the.
Breath of the Wild.
I'm so excited for Breath of the Wild because they're going back to classic controls. They're going for a larger, more interesting world that actually looks nice and isn't just a series of like open fields with nothing to do.
Now, the Wii did work wonderfully for Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
I really liked using a
Well, yeah.
controller for
I mean,
targeting at a screen.
I will
but-
still say like the Wii had some good ideas, but I really wish they hadn't decided just like let's go motion controls because.
It didn't read my slashes correctly. I would try doing a horizontal slash and it would read it as a vertical slash. I go, no, and it was necessary to get them
Yeah.
correct to the dot for some of these battles.
Yeah, Nintendo's
And
been
yet
making
the
me
Wii
miss
sold
the
like
GameCube
crazy.
since the GameCube.
Huh?
And yet the Wii still made a ton of money. So I just
yeah.
yeah.
Well, the Wii, I mean, part of it is they supported the Wii. One of the
Right.
reasons why the Wii did so well was because Nintendo actually gave a shit.
And they
I
had
would
a
say,
ton of accessories.
yeah, I would say that the Wii U is unequivocally the better platform, but they fucked up the marketing so bad and abandoned it so fast.
I really liked
that
it up until the
poor-
Motion Plus was put into play.
They were real in
Actu-
trouble when they started having to go to daytime talk shows just to try to explain to people. They're like, no, seriously, it's not an add-on. It's a real console.
Yeah.
We named it super poorly.
And that's why I'm excited for the Switch, because I loved the N64. I loved the GameCube probably the most out of all of the platforms, because that's when they had good controls. They had a decent lineup of games,
I thought the
huge
controllers
amounts of
were
games.
small.
They were small, but they were comfortable. I liked them.
Calling
also,
it
I
the
had
Wii U made
smaller
it sound
hands
like it
then.
was the Nintendo Wii 5S,
Yeah.
and nobody wants that. Even with the Wii though, they had issues with that where like it moved a ton of hardware and it moved a ton of first party stuff, specifically gimmicky things like Wii Fit and things like that. But they really struggled to sell games for that thing because so few people did anything besides just buy the console and move on because
It was the trendy thing to do.
it tapped into a larger audience that would buy that kind of gimmick toy for the living room, but wouldn't actually invest any time and money with it overall. So they would just buy
Right.
it, and it would sit there for like 8 years, and they wouldn't actually buy
always-
games for it. Like my
I
mom.
always wanted a set of Rock Band stuff, but it's just unbelievably pricey.
I still
get
have it in a
Yeah,
box.
I
over
think
here.
that a full
for
Rock
it.
Band stuff is like what $350 or something.
I know,
No.
and some of my friends had it, And I mean, now you can't even find it for like the Wii and such unless it's used.
Whenever they launch a new band in a box, it's always like $250.
Okay.
That's guitar,
Still
microphone,
pretty
the
expensive.
game, and the drums.
I remember one day I went into like one of those like collectible stores where they will buy like old video game consoles and stuff like that.
Oh,
and I walked in and I just I saw in one corner of the room just like 12 Guitar Hero like guitar things, like controllers.
A lot of thrift
and
stores
I just like
stopped
looked at
accepting
them. I looked at them and like the guy I was talking to, I just like barely looked at him. He was like, and he just like went off about them. He was like, yeah, I had to stop buying those things because basically one day, like 5 parents just came in and sold me like 12 of them, and I realized that like the market was crashing that day. And so he was like, and so I just stopped selling them. And he was like, I bought those things like 3 years ago and have never sold them to anybody that's walked into the store.
That's a global
Really?
story. Across the entire world, thrift stores everywhere had to start creating policies to not ever accept any more rock band instruments and stuff like that, and guitar instruments, because there was so many of them sold, and eventually, the popularity wave died down, and people just like they got to get rid of them, so they give them away to thrift stores and stuff like that. But there's millions of them. It's way too
Which is
many.
weird because
It's
people
like
sell them
Furbies. It's exactly like Furbies.
people sell them for exorbitant prices, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's
You could
because
also
they
just go
cost-
to a thrift store and probably get one for $5. But because it's at a thrift store, you know somebody died using it. It's just
Oh no! I had that experience. I went to a
What?
For me, it was like I think it was like a church garage sale type thing.
Oh,
Like it was
so
held
you
at someone's
found out
house, but it was such a
Oh.
huge garage sale that I think it was like a
That's
church
called an
organization
estate sale.
It might have been an estate sale.
That is when somebody dies.
Well, I didn't know
Those
if
are
it
called
was
estate
specifically
sales.
somebody being dead or not. I just knew. All I knew was some kind of garage sale. I don't think it was listed as anything like that. But I got to the PlayStation games that they had over on a shelf, and there were so many Star Wars games in there that it's like this is a specific collection. This isn't just random stuff. And so I bought some of them, and I'm like, this is such a weird specific collection, all being on sale at once. I think the person who owned the stuff died. I think they're just dead, and that's why they're all for sale here. Or someone has a really mad spouse and just wants them gone or something.
It's either me or the Star Wars.
Well, the other thing is they could have gone the route that my uncle did, where he like suddenly got extremely religious and he's like, I got to get rid of all of my games.
Yeah, that actually happens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Probably
Yeah.
pretty commonly.
my uncle burned every single video game in his house, which was
It's a
terrible
pretty
for him,
over-the-top
probably.
reaction.
Well, he was an over-the-top person. I could go on and on for a while.
This reminds me of I went to
A book burning.
I went to I was going to thrift stores, and one of them was called the U-turn for Jesus.
Oh,
Like U-turn as in like you do a U-turn for Jesus.
But
And,
also you turn.
Yeah.
For
And
Jesus.
off the shelf in an unmarked CD case, I bought a copy of Grand Theft Auto.
Nice.
That U-turn
Nice.
for Jesus. I'm like, I don't even know if they knew they had this, because this doesn't seem like something you'd sell at a very Christian named thrift store. I don't know if that fits entirely. It was right next to a bunch of cherubs and things, and I'm like, this is a weird place to find this specific game.
Okay.
That's pretty funny.
I want to bring this up. This is a little weird, but so on the same topic, so we've moved to Kansas now. And when we were in the Northeast,
yeah. Oh boy.
there was not a whole lot of like religious anything. Now that we've gotten here, I cannot tell you the number of guilting religious billboards I've run across that are like
was only on the
guilting me
highway
to go into
coming
church.
here.
Like at this point I've stopped bothering with all of that. But like religion or not, it's so weird to be guilted about going to church. Like even if I still went, I'd be like, no, I don't think I'm going to your church now that you've threatened me with hell and other places for not going to yours specifically. I think I'll go over to this one that has like potluck.
It was fun driving across the heartland the first time I moved over to DC, because I had that experience where it was just like every billboard was like, Jesus saves you specifically, unless you drive past this billboard, in which case you'll go to hell. Church, exit 35.
Yeah.
Wait, what? So it's
That's like what they look like. You live in Kansas.
It totally is. Like, the weird part is, like, they
Only
were pretty
temporarily.
positive leading up to coming here.
Yeah,
But, like, the
then
closer
they take
we
a
got-
real sour turn.
Yeah, the closer you get, the, like, darker they get. And you're like, what?
We got you now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm being threatened into being faithful. And it's like,
It sounds like the sliding
It's
scale
okay,
of tone
you
you get
are.
from audiobooks in
There
a
were-
game as you reach the climax and everything gets grimdark.
yeah, exactly.
There were so many billboards between Dallas and San Antonio
Oh, yeah.
around the Austin area that were just like...
They were even worse.
No. Okay, some of them were bad, but there were a ton of them where they were like, don't believe the advertisement works. It just did! Call this for this billboard. And it's like,
God.
it's they're trying to lease
There's a
out the
self-fulfilling
billboard
prophecy.
space.
Yeah.
That's so cheesy that it hurt me.
And there were several designs for that very same message. At first I thought, hey, this is the new billboard. And then, it's the same billboard. They just used different imagery. It looked really cool. It looked like it could have been something for a film.
No, it's
And
got a
then,
puppy.
This is a really, really, really random story that I haven't thought about in a long time.
Okay.
But I was in the Boy Scouts, and then one day, like the troop that the church that troop was based out of, they were doing like a little like sale just to get rid of like all the stuff that's been donated to them, like an opportunity shop thing, but like clearing out the inventory. And like I was just like volunteering to like run this thing because that we were in Boy Scouts, so it was like that's what we were supposed to do. And this guy drives by in this giant pickup truck with like an American flag painted on the back of the windshield, like one of those like decal type of things. And he just like drives by the church and like sticks his head out of the window and just yells, "Fuck you, churchies," and then rolls coal and just keeps driving. And I was like,
oh no!
that's the weirdest combination, right? Like, you would think
Yeah.
that guy would be like, "You're great, churchies," but no. No, apparently he was a hardcore atheist American insensitive dick.
Oh yeah, I've run into a lot of
But
a
it just
lot
made
of people.
me laugh
Yeah.
so much because it was such a weird image.
Yeah.
That's so
oh yeah.
bizarre. And were there a
Spontaneous
bunch of
anger
kids?
drive-by.
Yeah, he just yelled at a bunch of like 11, like he just told a bunch of like 10-year-old kids to go fuck themselves.
Oh, poor things. That's terrible.
No, we all thought it was funny.
Okay, so
We were just no. Our immediate reaction was like, "Did that make sense to any of you guys? Because he has an American flag. That's not right. Like that's literally what we like discussed among ourselves after that incident."
I mean, I suppose it just harkens back to the whole us versus them and people that are, you know, they. What's the word that I'm searching
Oh, that
for?
old thing.
It sounds similar to subscribe.
It's
Maybe
like
I'll
the
say
web- it's like the
subscribe
web
to a certain
comic.
thing.
It's like the webcomic where
then-
there's a red flag and a blue flag on the floor. One guy picks it up and he's like, "What's this?" And the other guy picks up the other flag. He's like, "Fuck that guy."
Oh, that's
Yeah.
such a great one.
It's like, you're different immediately and now I hate you.
Yeah.
I think that
much.
comic is just called How It Works. And it's just like this dude like picks up a flag and it's classic.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that this also harkens back to the whole online communities thing about like factions.
Oh yeah.
And I understand it for the purposes of PvP, but you know, does it serve to divide rather than unite everyone in their love of said game, or does it actually create hostility based on just what race or faction that you chose?
At the same time, is it just play hostility?
That too.
Like every
Or
time I ever
fervently
say that I had
believe
a human rogue, everyone's like, "No, for the horde," but like, who cares?
See, that's okay.
It's like
There are
pretend to
some
carry
people
on.
that really take it to heart, though.
Yeah, but those people are sad.
Yeah.
They deserve, they only deserve our
Oh.
pity. Because they have nothing
Okay,
else.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one last question, then we should probably switch to Grim Dawn.
We have so many
Yeah,
questions.
hour and a half. I want one question, a good one, and a short one.
This
Yeah.
has been an
So I can go
interesting
eat some
one, 'cause
dinner, and then we can play
we didn't
Grim
get
Dawn.
through any games or questions.
We talked about some pretty interesting stuff. I think.
Digimon on the Switch.
That's
a
what
bit.
happens when we
And
take a break.
Pokemon.
Yeah. So I have nothing to say about the Nintendo Switch because it was like a foregone conclusion I was going to get one. And so
Yeah.
for as long as it's in the future, I'm just like, I'll find out. So I don't know
I've
anything
been
about it
burned.
besides the weird hybrid element a little bit. And that's
Oh, sorry.
and I just know that the Zelda and Mario things are coming out, and that's it.
Yeah, I was just saying that I've been burned far too many times with hyping for particular games, like WildStar, for instance. I was like, oh boy.
Oh, yeah,
The
you spent way
the
too
same
much
people
time
that
on
made,
WildStar.
You know, World of Warcraft essentially are making their own
It's not.
MMO that's
It's like two
sci-fi.
people that worked on it.
Well, yeah.
That's
In any case-
all you need.
In any case, yeah, complete and utter flop. And I just remember spending so much time speculating about what
She
races they were
spent
going to
so
be.
much. She did this with EverQuest Next too.
Oh, I know, and that never came to fruition. So at this point, it's like, until something is verifiable and actually coming out, why get your hopes up for something that's just a glint in someone's eye?
I just don't have enough time to get my hopes up for anything anymore.
Yeah, I'm so busy with currently out things, I can't constantly obsess over future things.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
with how hype
And
works
stuff
nowadays,
comes out
people like
so goddamn often,
people
too.
act like you have to dedicate like 6+ hours to pre-hyping every game before it comes out over the course of the year or something. Like it takes work to keep paying attention to games that much before they're even out, and they might not even
there's
come out like
so
scale
many.
bound.
I'm actually not looking forward to games coming out because that means that that's more
You're
work for
behind the
me.
ball.
Because
Yeah,
like
even less
at the
time.
end of this month is Nier Automata, Horizon Zero Dawn, and then like a week later is the Switch, and like fuck.
Yeah.
My calendar gets scary sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, one quick question, Keith.
Okay.
And then I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
eat dinner.
There's another really stupid hypothetical.
No, not that one.
Give us a good one, man.
This one's stupid because it doesn't make sense. It's
No,
from-
not that one.
But it's Penguin.
Okay, fine.
No.
Let's do two.
But I just want to
and
point
that
out
can
the
be one of
question
them.
makes no sense real quick.
Okay.
They're like, if you were stuck in a Mad Max apocalypse with no other living
Okay.
humans, what would you do? That's not a Mad Max apocalypse. It's not
That's
what Mad
just
Max
a
is
sad
about.
apocalypse.
Mad Max is
Well-
not about an empty world
The
with no
Mad
people.
Max apocalypse, where everyone just doesn't want to hang out with you.
Well, I mean, maybe what they're implying is living in a desert with nothing but random mechanical refuse
Well, like
and
Mad
junk.
Max is inherently about other people being around in every movie. Otherwise,
Well, it's
otherwise
about,
it doesn't work.
It's about the new societies people make from the skeleton of
Have
the
you
old.
seen my Fallout playthroughs? That's pretty close to how it would be, except for there wouldn't be a reloading when I die.
I'd move to Canada.
Of course you would, Churchy.
What if the Mad Max
fuck me.
apocalypse is only in the United States? It stops exactly at the border.
It's because Canada built. Never mind.
Well, isn't
We actually
Mad
don't
Max?
have
Max is
much.
in
We genuinely
Australia.
don't
Yeah,
have
it's in
much.
Australia.
We
I
don't
want
have
to
much
see a
for
Mad
questions.
I
Mad
wanna
Max
see
is in
a-
Australia, so I mean, you assume that the rest of the world is gone in the same manner, but it could just be Australia.
I want to see a Mad Max movie where it turns out the rest of the world's fine. It's
It was just Australia. Just
yeah,
fucked
it's just
itself up.
Australia is like super screwed, and the rest of the world's like, look, we tried sending humanitarian aid, they just turned them into death cycles. So that was the point where we just decided it wasn't worth our effort.
Meanwhile, in the northern
and-
hemisphere, it's just Waterworld going on.
Yeah.
No,
I've heard
it's
people-
like a utopia.
I've
It's
heard
like
people theorize that
everywhere-
Hunger Games is just about the United States being screwed and the rest of the world's actually fine.
Yeah, I mean that's like what the Handmaid's Tale was like and stuff like that. It's pretty
Yeah,
common.
Oh yeah,
20
isn't
28
that
days
being
later,
released
it's
on
just
Netflix
England.
or Amazon or something?
Oh, is there a Handmaid's Tale thing
Yeah,
being
yeah,
made?
yeah.
Oh.
No, it's been made. I think the
Film?
it's a television
I guess
show.
I'll have to check that
Oh,
out
maybe.
because I kind of liked that book in high school.
Yep.
I had to read that for a class in college, and
never
it made me
have.
super like sad.
It's so sad. Grim.
Oh. Well, I believe they're making it into a television series.
Then it's going to be a sad-ass television series.
Yep.
There's not much going on in here. I thought I had a bunch of messages, but I'm looking at these, and like one of them's about XCOM, and I think it's just a question asked directly to me. Like they didn't get that it's a podcast thing.
That's funny.
Okay.
One of them asks, do any of you smoke? And I'm going to say, yeah, no.
No.
And in fact, for people who don't smoke, it looks like an incredibly alien practice where we don't understand why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like I watch Andrew, and he smokes every day, constantly, and it costs him so much
Weirds
money.
me out
on
that
it.
he's proud of it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't,
Yep.
and that's how a lot of smokers are. And I'm like, I genuinely cannot process what you're doing and why.
I always
like it
felt
costs you
bad
so much
when
money and
we were in
time.
the art studio, and we had these like nice balconies where you could, overlook the rest of campus and such. And, it'd be nice to, just sit out there and the wind would come by and, nice fresh air. Unfortunately, the smokers thought it was also nice. And they would go, hey guys, let's go outside and get some fresh air. And they immediately light up and pollute the air that was fresh. It's like, oh.
One of the weirdest things I experienced was that when I was in my geology courses, like you were straight up hiking in high altitude areas with like liters of water in the heat at 100
People would have already
plus degrees.
been lacking oxygen.
Like everything's awful around you, and you're just trying to struggle through that. And people were smoking. And I'm like, what are you doing right now? I don't understand. I don't understand how you're smoking in this specific setting right now. How is that an addition that helps you and makes you feel better in any way?
I've seen it destroy people. So.
And
Yep.
this was actually kind of
I've seen it destroy literally everybody.
The last question's from Epicness45, and it's, what games are you guys looking forward to this year? What are some older games you want to play?
We're looking forward to everyone and older games we want to play
Near
all of
Horizon
them.
Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, Andromeda, what are the Hand of Fate 2, shit.
I'm looking forward
have-
to Zero Escape
Oh.
trilogy coming to modern consoles and PC.
Right. Hollow
of-
Knight
Hope I
Instead
finish
of-
my game. That'd
Hollow
be cool if I
Knight.
released that.
Near Automata
within
comes out
this
in a month.
year, Bird?
It's not fucking happening this year.
Yeah, I think,
I
like-
have it tentatively planned out for at least 3 to 4 years from now.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. That gives me enough time to actually learn how to do 3D modeling and then learn how to do good 3D modeling.
Right.
I look forward to finding out whether or not Ukulele turns out to be actually good or not.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, yeah, we're all looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Because that's a big old question mark.
Yeah.
These companies that supposedly are the original people coming back and remaking their cherished thing has been such a mixed bag so far.
Yes. I kickstarted that for like $15, and I heard that they're selling it for like twice that, and I'm like, damn, I got a deal.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Banjo-Kazooie was so much my childhood. I can't wait.
Hollow Knight. Oh god, there's too many new games.
But yeah, I do want to see what they do with Mass Effect.
Okay.
And-
Yeah, let's reconvene next time with
adjourned.
maybe a list of games that we're actually looking forward to as opposed to every game.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to too many games.
Yeah,
There's some
and
games
that's
I'm
why I was
curious
saying.
about, like Horizon Zero Dawn is a big old question mark for me. Like,
Yeah, that could either be really good or I'm going to play four episodes and then be like, man, this is a wash.
All right,
It looks
I
like
gotta
one-
eat dinner. Like now, I'm getting very hungry.
Go eat, Bird. We'll keep talking for a little bit.
it just you can just cut your recording if you want to, Bird.
Yeah.
So the thing for Horizon Zero Dawn is that my concern is that it looks like one of those hype concepts, like not Wolfenstein. What was that wolf game? The Order. It seems like
Yeah,
The Order,
yeah,
where
yeah.
just the premise and setting alone, it makes people hyped. But at some point,
Yeah.
the game is going to be in their hands, and like they could easily be another No Man's Sky or The Order or
Honestly,
Quantum
either
Break,
it's-
where it's just like the concept looked cool on paper, but once you play the game, you start learning what the actual video game itself is, and you weren't thinking about that when you were thinking about how hyped you were about the game. As weird as it seems, because we get hyped for games like they're movies. Like, I want to be the crazy caveman lady that fights robo-dinosaurs with super weapons. But then the game comes in our hands, and we're like, oh, this is kind of like Far Cry. Like, when that game comes out, I imagine it's probably going to feel like a Ubisoft game, where you wander around a big open area and collect shit and discover a map and do tedious tasks and then build up eventually to a kind of cool hunt.
I'm not against the idea of having this big world to kind of explore and do side things.
It sounded
that kind
like
of
there
builds
was-
back into a good plot, because that's kind of what ReCore was. And I didn't mind that. The only problem is ReCore didn't have a good plot to build back into.
Yeah.
Like if it plays something like Arkham Knight, where you're just wandering around this big open world with a bunch of like theme parky side objectives, but then you actually have a big plot that actually matters and is interesting, I'm in. It's just the question is it going to end up like ReCore or Arkham Knight?
My concern is just more that like I think people are hyping it up because of a high concept element of it.
Yes.
And not fully realizing how mundane the final concept probably will be. Like, the moment-to-moment gameplay probably won't be nearly as interesting as you think it's going to be going in. It's probably going to be another run-of-the-mill video game, honestly.
Yeah.
And it could be good.
That's always true.
The hype's hit a peak right now that doesn't make sense to me, because I don't know how we always fall into the same pattern and never learn from it.
Yeah, no game is going to be legendary anymore. It's just going to be good. Or, I mean, okay, like, there's the occasional thing like Witcher 3, but even then, Witcher 3 was just a step above the rest in a lot of ways, but also not.
At the same time, things like Portal were novel concepts.
They were, but like...
And I don't think Portal was hyped.
No, it wasn't.
It just came out
Portal,
and blew everyone's
Portal
mind.
released weird,
Okay.
and it kept building up as this, like, meme joke, but also, like, technical
You're gonna say masterpiece.
Yeah. And just stuff like that. I don't know. Actually, I was gonna say, I before we go, I wanted to mention this. Destiny 2 looks like it's slated for the fall, and that's like a 100% release date.
Destiny 2.
Because if they don't put it out in the fall, Activision gets a substantial amount of Bungie stock.
Oh, wait, what?
That's some creepy... Oh, yeah, great. That's going to be an A+ game. I love how it's being built under a ransom.
Yeah.
That's an A+ development environment for a quality product.
Yep.
Oh, wait, was the licensing expiring?
Oh, that won't lead to a Final Fantasy 15 at all.
They've got a deal with Activision, and it's to make like 3 or 4 Destiny games over the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. But apparently one of the things is Destiny 2 has to come out in this year, or Bungie's kind of fucked. I mean, it would still mean Destiny is coming out, but that means more or less, here's the reins to our studio for real, as opposed to just the ransom.
Man, game development is a gross industry.
Now, is it going to be a standalone game, or is it going to be an extension?
It's going to be standalone. You're not going to need Destiny 1 to play it.
Okay.
There's not going to be any carryover. I've heard confirmation that there's going to be a PC version, but if they're under that type of release date... Yeah. Well, no, the last time it's like, we would like to put it on PC. This one's like, it is, they've confirmed that it's coming to PC.
Last time they said it's absolutely coming on PC. It's just going to come out a little later. And everyone's like, oh yeah, we're it's like, console people have to beta test this game, and like all that stuff is going on. But then it just never came out ever.
I know, and you see, it's frustrating for me because I have friends who play Final Fantasy together, and they can play together despite the fact that they have the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4, and I don't know, maybe the PC can also hook up to it too. It's interesting. They can play with one another across multiple consoles, which makes sense. But because we only have one of every console, Carl and I wouldn't be able to play games together unless it was PC based.
Oh, it'll probably be the Windows 10 gaming thing. That would be a bad move.
What, Windows?
Nothing has launched to that successfully. Windows is trying to tout its like own version of Steam, but it's not good. It's never been good.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I'm reading a post right now. It says servers for Final Fantasy 14 are unified on PC, PS3, and PS4.
Right, that's how they're able to play together, and they don't have to worry about getting multiple systems that are the same.
which is good. Not having that crazy
Oh, yeah.
multi-platform audience, like that's a cool way to handle that kind of MMO. Mm-hmm. And probably no distinct advantage for one way or another, because the game has like
It's a
very
third-
controller-based control scheme, which of course makes it easy to just put it on PC because it's
Yeah,
just
also-
numpad mapping basically.
Yeah, also it isn't a shooter. So I know
Yeah.
that was one of the complaints that they had about Destiny where, one person would have an advantage over another depending on what system they were playing on, therefore people can only play with those on their own system. And
Which is a moot point because it never came out on PC anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, also they wouldn't have people from Xbox versus PlayStation as well.
If it does come
Yeah.
out this year, I'm excited for it. And if it doesn't, I'm sorry, Bungie.
Yeah,
I feel bad for you.
I enjoyed Destiny, although I never played the new expansion at all, or even bought it
Yeah.
or looked at it.
If Bird picks up a PS4, we'll definitely play it. If he doesn't, then yeah, I don't know.
Destiny's fun. Its first
Yeah,
wave
it
of
is.
DLC is really scummy, but it's a fun game.
I
Yeah.
would have liked to have played
That
it,
was
but
so
I don't want to have
gross.
to buy another PlayStation for it.
That was so gross how the first wave of DLC was just playing levels of the main campaign backwards.
Yeah.
And you paid money for it, like
not
$40 or something. It was really gross. All right, so next time we'll get around, hopefully next week, and record another podcast where we haven't recorded in like 2 months, so we had a lot of stuff to talk
No.
about. We've
Yeah,
got backlog of thoughts, but next time we'll probably come back around to talk about like Neo and Resident Evil 7 and maybe like Nier and other games we've been playing lately and stuff like that.
Yes.
There's a lot. Yakuza
Yeah,
Zero.
there is.
That I want to talk about that game. That's a really noteworthy, strange game that I'm playing. So see you guys next time. If you want to send us questions, you can send an email to fournerdsquestions, all spelled out, no numbers or anything, at gmail.com. That's probably on the screen if you're watching it on YouTube and stuff like that. And we'll get to whatever questions we deem appropriate that show up in here. Thanks for watching like always, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.